They say destiny doesn't knock. It whispers in the smallest, simplest moments. Sometimes it's a glance at the right time, a kind word when the world feels heavy, or a stranger's hand stretched out when you least expect it. Michael had no idea that his life, marked by long hours, quiet sacrifices, and the endless duties of single fatherhood, was about to be rewritten. It all began on a crisp morning when he tied his worn sneakers ready for another routine walk. He couldn't have imagined that one small act of kindness, a torn dress, a trembling smile, would lead him to love, respect, and a future brighter than he dared to hope. The early morning air was cool, carrying the soft scent of freshly cut grass through the park in Manchester. Michael often walked there after dropping his 10-year-old daughter, Emily, at school. The walk cleared his mind before work at the auto repair shop. That day felt no different. Birds sang, joggers passed by, and the sun peeked through gray clouds in a stubborn struggle to shine. As he rounded the corner of the park, he noticed her. A young woman stood frozen near a bench, clutching the side of her elegant blue dress. The fabric had torn along the seam, revealing more than she wanted the world to see. She looked mortified, trying to hold the dress together while searching her purse desperately. Michael hesitated, unsure if approaching might embarrass her further. But his heart, always soft despite the burdens of life, wouldn't let him walk past. He stepped closer, clearing his throat gently. "Excuse me, miss," he said softly, not wanting to startle her. She turned, her cheeks flushed with worry, strands of golden hair framing her face. I don't know what to do," she admitted in a hushed voice. Michael noticed the expensive fabric, the way she carried herself, clearly not someone used to moments like this. "I've got some tools in my bag," he said, patting the worn backpack slung over his shoulder. Years of fixing cars meant he always carried odds and ends. He pulled out a small roll of black electrical tape and a safety pin. Not much, but it could hold the dress together until she found a better solution. "It's not perfect," he added, "but it'll get you through." The young woman hesitated, then let out a nervous laugh. "I guess desperate times call for desperate measures," she whispered. Michael turned politely away as she secured the tier with his makeshift solution. When she tapped his arm, he looked back to find her smiling shyly, the panic fading from her face. "Thank you," she said, her eyes softer now. "I don't even know your name." "Michael," he replied simply. "And you?" "Sophie," she answered. There was a gentleness in her voice, but also a strength, like someone used to being in control of situations, just not this one. She checked her reflection in her phone camera and sighed with relief. "You saved me from a disaster." Michael chuckled lightly. "I just did what anyone would have." But Sophie tilted her head, studying him. "No," she said firmly. "Not everyone would have stopped." With that, she gave him a grateful nod and walked briskly out of the park, heels clicking against the path, leaving Michael to wonder why that brief encounter left such a lasting impression on him. Life for Michael returned to its routine, or so he thought. He spent the next few days between work at the repair shop and caring for Emily. She was the center of his world, a bright girl who loved books and constantly peppered him with questions about everything under the sun. One evening, while cooking pasta in their small kitchen, Emily asked, "Daddy, do you ever think about meeting someone? Like, so you're not always alone when I'm at school?" Michael smiled, ruffling her hair. "You're more than enough for me, kiddo." But her words lingered. He hadn't thought about companionship in years, not since his ex-wife left, chasing a bigger life far away from responsibility. Michael had buried himself in work and parenting, never daring to hope for more. The image of Sophie, graceful even in her panic, flickered across his mind. Her smile, the way she thanked him, it was too vivid to ignore. Still, he shook it off. What were the chances he'd ever see her again? The following Monday, Michael arrived at the repair shop to buzzing excitement. His boss, Greg, gathered everyone in the break room. "We've been bought out," he announced. "New ownership, fresh management, big changes." The mechanics exchanged wary glances. Change rarely meant good news in their world. Michael, already worried about bills and stability, felt a knot tighten in his chest. Then Greg added, "The new head of operations will be here tomorrow to meet the staff." He grinned nervously. "Big shot from London. Young, sharp, and determined." Michael thought little of it, until the next day when footsteps clicked across the shop floor. The room fell silent. And then, there she was. Sophie, the woman from the park. Her dress today was flawless, her confidence restored, her expression professional yet familiar. Michael's heart thudded. She was his new boss. Sophie addressed the room with poise, thanking the team for their work and outlining her vision for modernizing the business. Michael could barely focus on her words. His mind spun with disbelief. The woman he helped in the park now held his future in her hands. When their eyes met briefly, something flickered across her face. Recognition. She paused, only for a moment, before continuing her speech. But Michael knew she remembered him. After the meeting, Sophie approached him quietly. "Michael," she said, her tone softer than it had been with the group. "I didn't expect to see you here." He smiled faintly. "Small world?" Her lips curved slightly. "Smaller than I thought." Over the next few weeks, Sophie proved herself a capable leader. She balanced firmness with fairness, earning respect quickly. Michael admired her determination, though it wasn't easy working under someone who seemed so far removed from his world. Yet when their paths crossed, there was always a subtle warmth, a shared understanding born from that morning in the park. Michael's co-workers teased him about catching the boss's eye, though he brushed it off. He wasn't foolish enough to think someone like Sophie would notice a single dad struggling to make ends meet. Still, sometimes, when she lingered a little too long in conversation or smiled just at him, hope sparked quietly in his chest. One evening, Michael stayed late fixing a car. Sophie appeared, heels in her hand, clearly exhausted. "You work too hard," she said gently. He laughed. "Says the woman still in the office at 9. They shared a rare moment of ease. Sophie confided that taking over the company was overwhelming, that she worried about living up to expectations. Michael listened, offering encouragement without judgment. For once, she didn't feel like a boss, just a woman who needed someone to understand. And in that dimly lit shop, surrounded by grease and tools, a fragile connection deepened. But not everyone welcomed Sophie. Some employees resisted her changes, complaining behind her back. Michael found himself defending her, not because she was his boss, but because he believed in her vision. Yet this loyalty drew attention. Rumors spread. Was Michael getting special treatment? Was there more between them than work? He hated the gossip, especially when he knew Emily might hear whispers in town. Sophie, too, noticed the tension. One afternoon, she called Michael into her office. "I don't want you to feel pressured," she said softly. "If working under me is too complicated, I understand." Michael shook his head. "You've given this place hope. I'm proud to stand by that." Her eyes softened, and in that moment, unspoken trust bloomed stronger than ever. Weeks later, fate struck cruelly. A stormy evening brought slick roads and flashing sirens. Michael's phone rang. It was Sophie's assistant, panicked. She'd been in a car accident, taken to the hospital. Michael rushed there, heart pounding. When he arrived, he found Sophie bruised, her arm in a sling, but alive. Relief washed over him. She looked up, surprised. "Michael, why are you here?" "Because you were there for us, even when you didn't have to be," he said simply. Tears welled in her eyes, though she blinked them away. "You didn't have to—" "Yes," he interrupted softly. "I did." Sophie's recovery was slow, but Michael checked on her often. Emily joined him once, bringing homemade cookies. Sophie, touched by the little girl's kindness, grew closer to them both. Their evenings became filled with laughter, shared meals, and stories that bridged the gap between their worlds. For the first time in years, Michael felt the weight of loneliness lift. Sophie's presence brought light into their modest home, and Emily adored her. Still, Michael couldn't shake the fear. What if this was temporary? What if Sophie's world and his were too far apart to stay connected? At work, Sophie's leadership style shifted subtly. She relied more on Michael's insights, valuing his grounded perspective. Others noticed, but she didn't care. During one late-night conversation, she admitted, "You remind me that leadership isn't about power, it's about people." Michael met her gaze, his voice steady. "And you remind me that life isn't just about surviving, it is about daring to hope again." Their bond deepened, fragile yet undeniable. But the whispers in town grew louder. Some said Sophie was ruining the company with sentiment. Others claimed Michael was her favorite, undeservedly so. The tension boiled over one afternoon when an employee confronted Sophie, accusing her of favoritism. Michael stepped in, defending her with quiet strength. The argument left Sophie shaken, though grateful. That night, she confessed to Michael, "Sometimes I wonder if I'm strong enough for this." He placed a hand over hers. Strength isn't never falling. It's standing back up even when it hurts. Meanwhile, Emily noticed the closeness between her father and Sophie. One evening, she asked innocently, "Do you like her, Daddy?" Michael hesitated. "She's special." Emily grinned. "She makes you smile more. I think she likes you too." Her words planted seeds of courage Michael hadn't dared to water before. As Sophie healed from the accident, she invited Michael and Emily to her family estate outside London. The grandeur of the place left Michael uneasy, a stark contrast to his modest life. But Sophie reassured him gently, "This is just walls and stone. What matters is who's inside." Over dinner, Sophie's father, an imposing man, questioned Michael bluntly. "What do you want from my daughter?" Michael's answer was simple. Respect, trust, and nothing more than what she freely gives. Sophie's eyes glistened with quiet pride. The pressure of business challenges grew, threatening Sophie's position. Rivals within the company pushed back hard, trying to paint her as inexperienced. Michael, though not from her world, became her anchor. "You don't need to fight their way," he told her. "Fight your way, by being who you are." And slowly, Sophie began to win hearts through compassion, not intimidation. Their relationship edged beyond friendship. One late evening, after a long day, Sophie lingered by Michael's side, her hand brushing his. Their eyes locked, and for a breathless moment, the world faded away. But Michael pulled back gently. "I can't risk what you've worked so hard for," he whispered. Her reply was soft, yet firm. "And I can't risk losing someone who makes me feel human again." Despite their growing feelings, life tested them again. A financial setback threatened the company, sparking doubts in everyone. Michael, though not an expert, suggested practical solutions, helping Sophie steady the storm. His quiet wisdom amazed her. "You see things so clearly," she told him one night. He smiled faintly. "Maybe because I've had to find light in the darkest places." The more time they spent together, the more undeniable their bond became. Emily adored Sophie, and Sophie in turn treated Emily like her own. For Michael, watching them together filled a void he never thought could heal, but the fear remained. Was this fragile happiness too good to last? Then came another twist. Sophie was offered a major position abroad. It was everything she'd worked for. Michael knew what it meant. She might leave. He masked his heartbreak, encouraging her to follow her dreams. But Sophie's heart was torn. One evening, she confessed, Success means nothing if it takes me away from the people who matter most. The decision weighed heavily on Sophie until Emily, innocent yet wise beyond her years, looked up at her and said, "Sometimes family isn't the one you're born with. It's the one you choose." Tears filled Sophie's eyes. In that moment, her choice became clear. Sophie declined the offer, choosing instead to build a future where her heart truly belonged. And for the first time, Michael allowed himself to dream of love, of partnership, of a family made whole again. One evening, under the glow of city lights, Sophie whispered, "Thank you for fixing more than a torn dress. You fixed a life I didn't know was broken." Michael smiled, his heart finally at peace. "And you gave me back something I thought I'd lost forever, hope."